Welcome. Today is the 12th day of Tishrei, the 14th of October, and we are building up to Sukkot. And as we said, this week we're going to be looking at the wonders issue for Sukkot and Shabbat Bereshit. You can get a copy of it and the articles on it or in it on our Patreon page, which is patreon.com/galeinai, Galeinai. It helps to look at the article for reference. So this week we're going to be talking about the first article in the issue. I think it's the first article, might be the second one because there might be a blessing from Rav Ginsburg as the first article. The second article is about the unity of unities. And basically, the idea behind this, as we began to explain yesterday, is that when we speak about unity, we can't fall into the trap of looking for a unity that is not of this world. God is unified and singular in a way that we don't understand completely. But when it comes to unity between human beings and people and nations, we have to look for the types of unity that actually make sense in the mundane reality. And if you want to understand more about the difference between our reality and the reality that is God's reality, I invite you to listen to my series of classes that I give in the mornings here in Israel. It's called Daily Chassidus. And this happens to be exactly the topic we're talking about in these days. So the same class that we had, the parallel class that I gave this morning was actually talking about this topic. It's a very big topic in Hasidic thought. But let's get to the crux of what we're talking about, which is what's known as the four species. There is a commandment that for the holiday of Sukkot, we take these four species. Now, what are these? We'll look at Leviticus 23:40, and there it reads, "On the first day, meaning on the first day of Sukkot, you shall take the fruit of a beautiful tree, branches of a palm tree, and boughs of thick trees, and willows of the brook, and you shall rejoice before Havaya your God for 7 days." Okay. The Torah's language is not what you would call horticultural language. It's not, Torah doesn't define things usually in a very scientific way. It has its own method of identifying objects that it wants you to work with. So it won't always say what a beautiful tree is. Pri etz hadar, the fruit of a beautiful tree. The sages who had the tradition of what the Torah was talking about told us that this is an etrog in Hebrew, a citron in English. And they asked, why is this called a beautiful tree? Well, it's not. That's the weakness of translating words into English. So a word like hadar, which does mean beautiful or graceful or any other synonym that you want, also means to dwell. And it's true that there's like a strange way of saying it. Pri etz hadar, the fruit of a tree that dwells. The dwells is not on the tree, the dwells is on the fruit. And so the fruit is understood to be a fruit that takes an entire year to ripen, to mature. So it's dwelling on the tree for a full cycle of the 4 seasons. The branches of a palm tree, well, there's many types of palms. I don't know if you're familiar with them. In the book of Exodus, we know that there are 70 types of palm trees. The palm tree is considered to be the king of all the trees. In Hebrew, it's called the tamar. And like all trees, it has the quality of being able to take seemingly contaminated water bitter water and sweetening it. And no fruit is more pronouncedly sweet while being able to grow on bitter waters than the date. And so the date palm is considered to be the king of all the trees, showing the ultimate character trait of a tree. By the way, when we say that man is like the tree of the field, we mean the same thing. And we've talked about this many, many times, that the quality, the character of a truly outstanding individual is someone who can take the bitter circumstances of life and churn them into something sweet, and churn them into sweetness, something that's not just edible, but is not just palatable, but something that people understand to be sweet. No person achieved this more than Moses, who took people from the bitterness of the Egyptian bondage and brought them out to show them that from that bitterness they had attained and received the greatest sweetness, which is the Torah, and the freedom to become a people in their own land. And we could go on and on with these explanations. Again, this is Leviticus 23:40. Now, you're supposed to take all four of these species together, which again, in modern terms, are the citron, the date palm branch, but not one that's open, but actually one that is not yet open, so it actually looks like a sword. It's like a very tight branch. The leaves are difficult to pry apart. Then the branches of a myrtle bush, and finally the branches of a willow. And not a weeping willow like a tree, but rather a willow that is like a bush, much smaller. The leaves are different for that reason, and they're not jagged like in the tree. There's a lot to talk about these differences. In any case, it's called the willow branches. So we have these four species and we bring them together. The common symbolism that if you go to any synagogue in the world, you will hear, which is the basic understanding of this and is setting up how one should think about this, is that the willows have no taste and no smell. The myrtle branches have smell but have no taste. The date palm branch has taste because it has dates. We don't take it with the dates, but the tree has dates, sweetness of the dates, so it has taste but has no smell. And finally, the citron is both a fruit, so it can be eaten, and it has a beautiful fragrance. It's one of the citrus fruits, and so it has smell and taste. And then you'll hear a variety of explanations of this symbolism. For instance, that the willow, or let's start from the citron. The citron represents Jews who have both smell and taste, which is both good deeds, and Torah, which is the taste. And then there are those who only have Torah but don't have good deeds, those who have good deeds but don't have Torah. And finally, the willows represent people who have neither good deeds nor Torah. They don't know either. They don't know of either. And yet we're commanded to take them all together. So this is a type of unity that's a lot of times talked about. What we want to do today, tomorrow, and the day after is talk about a lesser known explanation of the unity. And this explanation comes from Rabbi Akiva. It's found in the Medrash. It's found in Vayikra Rabbah. You can see the citations in the article. And there it says like this: the fruit of a beautiful tree, referring, as we said, to the citron, this is the holy blessed one. As it is written, you are clothed with glory and majesty. What's he saying? He's saying the citron represents God's unity. Why? Because God is clothed with glory and majesty. Majesty is another translation, a possible translation of the word hadar that we talked about before. Then he continues and he says, branches of palm trees, referring to the palm branch. This is the holy blessed one. As it is written, the righteous shall flourish like the palm tree. He says this too is a symbol for God. And boughs of thick trees. The boughs of thick trees refers, as we said, to the myrtle branches. This is the Holy Blessed One, as it is written, and he stood among the myrtle trees in Daniel. So again, the myrtle branches become a symbol for God. And willows of the brook, referring to the willow branches, this is the Holy Blessed One, as it is written, extol him who rides upon the skies by his name, Ka. Very interesting medrash, because he's not comparing the four species to the people of Israel. It's a very strange comparison. He's saying each one of the four species is actually a symbol for God. Now, to be perfectly fair, and you have to learn medrash this way, you can't just read something out of context. You have to understand the context. In the Talmud, or rather in the Mishnah, but it's quoted in the Talmud, Rabbi Akiva is of the opinion that we take one of each species. One citron, one date palm, one myrtle branch, one willow. Now we in effect rule differently. We don't follow his opinion when it comes to the number of specimens from each species. Because we in effect, we take one citron and one date palm branch, but we take 3 myrtle branches and 2 willows. Rabbi Akiva is consistent with his opinion, his halachic opinion, his legal opinion, that you take one of each, when he says that each one of these represents God. Because that would make sense, that each one is singular. However, the sages did not put the 2 sayings from Rabbi Akiva together. In fact, they don't even appear in the same book. So it's up to the learner, the scholar, to know this. And you have to know this to fully understand the context. But still, the Medrash stands by itself. And in Hasidic thought, it was explained that really what Rabbi Akiva is saying here is that each one of the 4 species represents a certain aspect of godliness. Not God himself, but a certain aspect of godliness. And what might those aspects be? Well, each one of them is a form of unity. We'll say it this way, the way that godliness interjects itself or injects itself into our reality. And so we have a form of unity that is like the citron. We have a form of unity, a godly unity, which is like the date palm branch. We have a form of unity that is like the myrtle branch, and we have a form of unity which is like the willow branch. And this is in human affairs. So we're looking at how human beings can achieve unity. Tomorrow, we'll begin looking at what each one of these types of unity really are. And then try to build them into what we are talking about this year, into a partzuf. A partzuf means a model that we are aware of, that we know of. Better known model that we know from other areas of Torah, that can then shed light on how to understand the 4 species according to this saying from Rabbi Akiva. So please join me tomorrow when we continue. And in the meantime, you should be well, blessed, and in good spirits. All the best.